Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. This episode is brought to you by The Wellness Paradigm, a holistic health coaching company shifting the way that women understand and heal their bodies. Through bioenergetic testing, functional lab testing, and functional nutrition, we uncover what traditional approaches often overlook, so you can stop guessing, start healing, and finally feel like yourself again. No more one-size-fits-all protocols, just real answers, deep-rooted healing, and the clarity and confidence you deserve to feel incredible. It's time to shift the paradigm of women's health. Now on to our show. Hello, Monika.
Hello.
Today we have a very special guest, Monika, on the show. And I say that because Monika is one of our coaches at the Wellness Paradigm, somebody that I have had the honor of knowing for many years now. And she has helped many, many, many of our clients, hundreds over the years, really. She is a women's holistic functional health coach. She really is jack of all trades. I mean, you work with hormones, we work with fertility, we work with gut, we work with metabolism, and it's just been a beautiful journey, throughout the years, helping clients and seeing your progression, your growth as well, which is always very satisfying, especially, you know, being the CEO, but like it's a lot of fun. So today, our conversation, I wanted to bring some real, raw, honest conversations around fertility, around motherhood. We'll probably tap on hormones, but I know this is something I specifically wanted to talk on because Monika and I we meet weekly. We have gone through so much with, Monika's fertility journey, my fertility, pregnancy, postpartum. And I think this is a really good conversation because we both have had we have similar methodologies for how we help clients, but we have had very different experiences when it comes to all of these kind of things. So first of all, I'd love for you to introduce yourself just a little bit further, and then we can kind of get into the fun.
Well, thank you for that introduction. Um, yes, I have known Shannon for quite some time, and I have grown to love her. She's amazing friend, boss, um, everything. She's great. And I've also learned so much from her as well. I come from a background of pageants and bodybuilding competitions. And I did not even want to get into this wellness industry. I thought I was going to be a journalist. I wanted to be a reporter on TV. Um, and then my journey started at a very young age, at 18, when I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And my doctor told me that I had lupus. And basically, he was like, "You're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life. So I know you dance and you have dreams, like aspiring dreams to be on TV and all this stuff. You got to just give it up because you're going to be in a wheelchair." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like at 18, telling you this is devastating." Thankfully, I went to another doctor and she was like, "You absolutely do not have lupus. We're going to put you on this medicine and you'll be fine." And thankfully, I don't even drink any medicine anymore. Like through my dieting and just my lifestyle,
Yeah.
I've been able to keep that under, control. But anyways, I started competing bodybuilding and I was not losing weight. And I was doing crazy diets from having tilapia 7 times a day to working out 3 hours a day. And nothing was like, I was not, if anything, I was gaining weight.
Yeah.
And I knew something was wrong in my body.
Mhm.
But my coach at the time was just like, her response was, "Keep doing more cardio. You're just not doing enough cardio." Needless to say, I competed, tanked like horrible, did the worst I've ever done. And I decided to give my body a break. Around that time, the pandemic hit. And so I was just at home, not doing much. And I started doing my own research and figuring out about functional medicine and just like the functional route of things. And that's where I met Alan Kress, which he has been my mentor and just opened the doors for me. And I, just started going that route and learning more. I did while I was competing, I did get my certification for training. I was like doing some stuff here and there, but I didn't really think I was going to do much with it until I went the functional route. And that's when just everything changed for me. And I'm so glad that it did.
Yeah, well, I remember interviewing you, and I had a vision of who I really wanted to bring into the company, and it was so funny meeting you because I was like, "Oh my God, our stories are so similar." It's, like we both were diagnosed with these quotation incurable autoimmune diseases. We did bodybuilding. We were like, crippled for some time and found functional health is really this, godsend for healing. And it's like once you learn that, you can't ever go back. You just like you want to share it with the world, and you're like, "Oh my God, if I can heal, so many other people can't do." And it was like, not only your knowledge, but your passion, right? That's a big one. You can't lie and hide your passion and enthusiasm for helping people.
That's true.
Um, yes. Which really was one of the big things, with pulling you into the company too. But it's like, understanding this and then understanding going through your own healing journey and understanding more and more because you were able to heal, come off these medications, and then it was like a whole nother healing journey when you, because I don't remember when your fertility journey started after you and I met, or if it was started.
Um, I remember during the interview, you told me, because I had explained to you that I was trying to get pregnant, and you're like, "I'm pregnant. Is this triggering for you?" I remember you telling me this, and I was like, "No, not at all. I'm so excited for you." So it
Yeah.
was definitely in the midst of that we started trying. Yeah, we started trying for about 2 years. I want to say like 2022, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Because I was in my second trimester when I hired you. That's right. Because, it's an interesting topic because it is hard, especially like bringing with somebody on. I didn't want it. Like some people are very, very triggered, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I don't want to say activated by it, right?
Mhm.
And it can be a really hard conversation and to be around, especially when you are a coach, very, very tightly intertwined in my life and our company, and my marketing. A lot of it was centered too around this, which actually aligned really nicely. Um, but we both, it is something that I'd love for you to talk more about what your journey looked like. Because I know for me, I did a lot of inner work, a lot of work pulling off medications, getting my body healed, doing labs, doing, stuff. And I did get pregnant on the first try. I know that your story wasn't quite that easy. So I'd love for you to open up about kind of more of the things that you did, what you found maybe worked, maybe what didn't work, and maybe some of the pieces, of your puzzle.
Um, it's funny. I like to say this because I always felt a little bit guilty. For most of my life, I remember thinking, I'm never going to be a mom. I don't want children. And then all of a sudden, one day, out of like nowhere, I just look at my husband. I'm like, "Do you want to have kids?" And I came with a mentality. I don't know if it's my Hispanic background that you literally like get pregnant instantly. Like a guy just looks at you and you're like, "I'm pregnant." So I thought this was going to be super easy. So we start trying. 6 months down the line, nothing happened. A year, and I was like, okay, maybe it's my age, maybe it's me. I know that I had some hormonal issues and metabolism issues back when I competed. Maybe it's something of that. So I did start doing um, testing and things like that. I did a flush, just kind of get my body ready for everything. And I did have some hormones out of like my progesterone was very low. So we did manage to balance out everything. Um, and so I did my work. I waited a little bit just to get everything, balanced out and ready to go. Which I did. And then, but we still weren't getting pregnant. And I refused to go to a fertility doctor. I felt like that was going to make me such a hypocrite. Here I am, a functional coach, like all about holistic and doing things naturally. And if I went to a fertility doctor, I felt like such a failure, such a like a liar. So that was like, no, we're not doing that. So I go to my OBGYN and I kind of told him like, okay, these are the tests we're going to do. We're going to do I forget the name right now, but it was checking like the fallopian tubes and making sure that they were both opened, which was the most painful thing I've ever went through. Everything was fine. I just gave him like a whole bunch of tests and then we did it. Everything was fine. People were just like, oh, just wait, wait. I remember I did like Reiki, I did everything, acupuncture, um,
Wow.
everything, everything, everything. And about a year and a half into it, I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. So then we decided to go towards my husband and see what was wrong with him. And then we did do some tests, and the doctor was like, "Yeah, no, you're fine. It's your wife." And I was like, "It is not me." Like, I hate when doctors say that.
Oh,
I automatically think it's the woman's fault. And I was like, "Listen, look at my numbers." Because at the time I was working with Kristen DeAngelis from Vital. She's a great friend of mine, and he was like, "It's not you. I think it's gonna be your husband."
yeah.
We had done a Dutch test. I was taking New Balance, which is oh my gosh, I can't remember the name right now. But it basically was like for my ovaries and getting my eggs perfect. And we finally went to another doctor, and they're like, you know what, it is your husband. It's a male fertility issue. You may have to go to a fertility doctor.
Yeah.
And that's where I was like, oh my gosh, no. So I like cried about it to my husband, and he's like, listen, let's just go see what they have to say. And I loved him because the first thing he told me was, your numbers are wonderful. Like, your eggs are literally someone who's 25 years old. Like, I don't know what you're doing, but you're doing great. Keep on doing it. This is going to be your husband here that has the issues. Um, but we're gonna do IUI without any medication or any hormones because I really think your body can naturally get pregnant. And I was like, all right, we're gonna do it. So I did do the first IUI. I don't know if it's mother instinct already or just being a functional coach. I knew that was not gonna stick.
Mhm.
I was so stressed out during that IUI. Not to get too like TMI, but my cervix is a little bit tilted, and the nurse could not put the needle where it needed to go. And I was in so much pain every time she tried. She had to call in another nurse to try and get it like to where it needed to be. And it was just awful. And you can't go to like, you can't use the restroom. And I really had to pee. By this time I was already like 2 hours trying, when this procedure usually takes like half an hour, and I was already 2 hours into this. And I was like, I can't wait anymore. So I was so uncomfortable. So finally, like after we got the results, 2 weeks later, they're like, no, it didn't. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know. This is probably the end again, like having a meltdown. My husband's like, let's just try it again. They also did wait a little bit too long to do the procedure, like after I ovulated, which in my head, I'm thinking, this is wrong. You should have done it like the day after. Anyways, so we tried again, no hormones.
Mhm.
And this time they did it like right after my ovulation, right when I thought like, I was like, okay, this is a good time. The nurse was a different nurse, amazing, beautiful woman. Like, she's like, I already know that, like, no, she wasn't even in my charts because they hadn't put it in my charts, but she's like, I know that you have like that, your cervix is tilted. And was it cervix or uterus? Something's off. And then she told me, I want you to take a deep breath, like meditate. And it was also chill. Um, and after that, I was able to like actually meditate. Like, you're supposed to lay down for half an hour. I was able to meditate, and I
Mhm.
just felt so like zen and so relaxed. And I was like, I think this is it. And then of course it was a wife's, I don't know if it was a wife's tale or not, but in like some of the forums that I was in, they say go have McDonald's French fries. I know, like horrible, horrible, but at this point you just try anything, even if it's like the most toxic thing, you're just like, if it's gonna work. Um, so I had McDonald's French fries, and then for like a week, for a couple of days after, I had pineapples, and then like a leading up to like the 2 weeks, I was having a lot of pomegranate juice just because like those reds and those blues are really good for fertility because it like really gets goes to your uterus and helps with that. So yeah, and then I actually it was it was a Wednesday, I remember. I checked my phone, I don't know why, and I saw that I got results from Quest, and I was like, "Oh my God, this must be it." And I saw that my HCG was super high, and I remember I'm pregnant. Like this was me by myself because my husband was at work, and I went running downstairs. At that time, I lived with my parents still, and I went running downstairs, and I was like, "Oh, I think I'm pregnant." And mind you, I don't cry. I'm not a crying person. And I was like sobbing, and then I took a pregnancy test just to make sure, and of course, it showed pregnant. But yeah. Oh, and that was actually another thing. Sorry. I know I go like on these rants, but this is something that I'm so like passionate about. So we got our test results um on Thursday, but I went to the doctor on Wednesday because I was like, oh, this isn't gonna work. I was being kind of negative Nancy over here. But while we were sitting in the doctor's office, mind you, remember, I'm not a very emotional person. I was watching something on my Instagram about an old man who got a ticket. I don't even remember for what, but he had to go to like his cancer treatment, and he ended up getting a ticket.
Wait, I've seen that with like Judge Judy or some judge,
And
some.
I just started sobbing, and I was like, this is so not like me, but I'm not going to get my hopes up. I'm probably about to get my cycle, and this is what's happening. And I remember telling the doctor, like, okay, so what's the next step? And he was going to get us ready for like a third round of IUI. And this time he was going to put a little bit of hormones. I even forgot which one it was. Um, and then on Thursday, I found out that I found out Wednesday night, but the doctor called me on Thursday. And I remember the lady was like, so I was like, yeah, I know. And she's like, are you not happy? And I'm like, no, I figured out like last night. That's why I'm not like super excited. Um, yeah, that's my journey.
Well, there's so many things to tap on with this story, but I a really something I did want to highlight and why I wanted to chat about this too is like we are in the functional health world, and I feel as if a lot of times, traditional, doctors, fertility get a really bad rap in our world. And while I do believe there is a lot left to be seen in that world, working on fertility first, like on just like balancing your body out is so important. And you're only 50% of the equation, girl. It's like this male infertility is a huge, huge factor. And I mean, there's statistics that I think sperm has dropped, like 70% in the last, since like the 70s, something crazy. It's like that's a big thing, especially when, husbands have maybe some metabolic issues that I know that, may or may not have played a factor in your role too. But it's like, but it's still important because the work you do and how healthy your body is also going to be that vessel when you can get pregnant too, and it's like a lot of women feel like defeated or like, oh, it's useless. Like, no, 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 like getting your body into balance is the best thing because one, it's going to help you sustain that pregnancy, which is it's a big one, right? And it'll help you during the pregnancy and postpartum, right? So I'm sure like you being healthier too helped, helped everything, but it's hard to not feel like a fraud or a failure when like why is this working for everybody else, and I think it's really interesting you tapped on the nervous system piece without really knowing it with that first one, feeling dysregulated, not being able to calm down, and it's like with that second just having this calm because that's a huge component that gets missed a lot in fertility. Nervous
Yes.
system regulation as you're learning more and more, it's just like it is the missing piece for so many people, and having that because it can be a beautiful thing, but I do, what I don't love is when that's the only option, right? It's like, oh, I haven't gotten pregnant for 6 months or a year. I'm just going to go to this very expensive treatment where they're not going to address any of that. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, but if we don't address, I know for you, these underlying hormone issues, thyroid issues, nervous system issues, like you're going to have a hard time during that pregnancy and postpartum, So it's like, do the work. And then if you need that, that's okay. That's why modern medicine is there too, right? I
Mhm.
think, yeah, it's a really important conversation to have, right? Um, and
Absolutely.
so, you had a really good, really great pregnancy.
I did. Well, I mean, minus the first trimester, that I was nauseous, but honestly, I didn't throw up once. I was really excited. But other than that, it was an amazing pregnancy. I thought because well, in the Western medicine, I'm considered geriatric, and I hate that. Like, I had to go to a special
Yeah.
um, doctor for it because I was over 35. At the time, I think I was, when I got pregnant, I think I was 36, going into
You're pretty
37. So I was like, hello, I'm not even that old.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, I did. I did. The pregnancy was great. The delivery was great. I was so nervous about giving birth. I always told everybody the two things that I have feared the most in my life has been death and pregnancy. I mean, I'm sorry, and delivery.
Yeah.
I did one, and well, hopefully I won't be doing the other one for a while. But yeah, I was so nervous about delivery and labor, but it all went well, and thankfully she's healthy. The only thing that I had was a marginal cord insertion, where the placenta doesn't exactly like
Yeah.
insert the cord in the cord doesn't insert the placenta right in the middle. It's a little bit off to the side. But when they first told me that, which is another thing about doctors, I mean, if you're dealing with a pregnant woman, maybe the way that you present something to them can be a little bit better than, well, we're not going to, at that time when they told me, I was getting ready to go to Europe. And all she tells me is, "Oh yeah, you've got a marginal cord insertion. But it's fine. Like you're fine. Go enjoy Europe. And if anything, when you come back, we'll deal with it. And we'll just have to probably do a lot of more sonograms, and maybe you'll have to deliver early. That's fine if the baby's not like big enough. It's cool. That's fine. You're fine though." And I left there and I was just like, crying once again, somebody who doesn't cry. I thought like that Mila was going to be abnormal, that she was going to be a dwarf, basically. Like that's what I thought they meant. And I was like, oh my gosh, like she's a dwarf. And they just like say it so easy, like nonchalant. "Oh, it's fine." Um, I finally called my gyno, who's my cousin, by the way. And so he knows how I am. And he's like, you're absolutely fine. It's just that she might be a little bit underweight, which might not be such a bad thing because my husband was like 12 pounds when he was born. So he's like, it's probably not a bad thing, if she'll be like 7, 8 pounds, it's fine. And she ended up being like 7 pounds and she's fine. So yeah, but other than it was a really good pregnancy. I can't complain.
Yeah. Pregnancy is such an interesting time because the work you do pre-pregnancy matters so much with how you handle the pregnancy, and how well your body adapts. And I mean, just to get a little more like set, your literal gut microbiome, your literal nervous system like gets passed on to the child too. So like that's a really big one. Um, and it still you can do all of the things right and still have a really rough pregnancy too. And it's like we can only try our best. And like I know for me, like this has been my whole lifelong journey with health, but it's like as long as I feel like I did everything I could, and if things still like feel shitty or whatever, then I know like I did what I could. I'm not
Yeah.
leaving a stone unturned, you know what I mean? Um, but I really feel like that really helped, and especially even with autoimmune issues. RA is a really big one that goes into remission actually when you are pregnant. That
Yes, yes, it does. I remember that fertility specialist she told me, she's like, actually, how are you feeling? And I'm like, well, I really don't have many symptoms, so I can't tell you if it's good or bad. But I will tell you that it was amazing. No pain. I mean, minus towards the end when she was like
well,
literally on my pelvis. But no pain, and I felt so stress free. Like people would ask me things that might have gotten me a little bit mad before being pregnant. And I was like, yeah, that's totally fine. Like, you want to go jump off a building and then come to my house and like get it complete? That's totally fine. I love that for you. So and needless to say, she's actually super chill, baby. So I don't know if that has something to do with it or not, but yeah, I really cannot complain.
it was hysterical. I remember you being pregnant and being like, you're handling this like a little different than I would have maybe thought. Maybe thought you're like, I'm just chill. I'm like, okay.
Yes,
I love this
yeah,
for you.
super
But
chill.
all that progesterone, just all those beautiful coming,
But
hormones.
then come postpartum,
Wow.
and that was totally different. Yeah.
Love this. Because the postpartum experience is really an interesting one. And again, postpartum preconception, 6 months to a year matters in your postpartum. People do not think that far. And I understand because it's kind of stressful enough sometimes thinking about just getting pregnant and then, the pregnancy. Um, but this is an interesting one. I mean, I had a really, really beautiful, very seamless experience as far as, postpartum goes, but not everybody can say the same. So, I'd be curious on how, yeah, your postpartum experience and things that you felt like worked really well and maybe things that didn't.
I wouldn't say that I had a horrible postpartum because I
No.
know that there's some women that eh, if they really suffer.
Yeah.
Uh, I would say that the first couple days for me, um, I felt very detached from her.
Yeah.
Um, and I wasn't really having that connection.
Yeah.
I remember like most of my friends were like, "Oh my gosh, when I first met my baby, like they gave her to or gave them to me," and I was like, "Oh, in love." I was like, "That did not happen to me. Maybe I'm like a really bad person because not at all." Um, and I was starting to get a little bit upset seeing, people like my niece or my friends. Um, they'd post on Instagram that they were able to go to the gym and they were able to stay out till late. And here I am, like postpartum, can't really move very much from my house, can't work out, can't do anything. I can see how you can enter into a depression if you don't already have the tools necessary. Um, and also I think the people around you as well, the community that you have. Um, and I remember I was like, I need to talk to my therapist because I know something's off. And before it gets worse, I want to nip it in the butt.
Mhm.
Um, and the first thing she told me was, you need to mourn your old life. And
Mhm.
it's okay. There's nothing wrong with this new Monica. It doesn't make you a
Mhm.
worse person or anything like that because you're a mom. Because that's another thing. When I was younger and dumb and naive, I used to think, oh my God, being a mom means you're so old and like your life is ruined. um, so I had a little bit of that in the back of my head. And after that meeting with her, I was just like, you know what? That's absolutely true. Like, I just need to mourn and be okay with not being that Monica anymore. And this is just like a new season that I'm in. And I kid you not, like that must have been a Tuesday. And on Wednesday, I know for some people it doesn't happen this fast. It was like night and day difference. I was talking to her more. I was um like I don't know, I felt much more in love with her than I did the days prior.
Mhm.
So having that conversation with her and having that help, and also having my mom kind of put me in my place and be like, have you realized that you've been talking more to the dog than to your daughter? And I was like, oh my gosh, I have been. I don't even really talk to Mila, I'm just talking to my dog. And that completely changed it for me, as far as like the relationship that I had with my daughter. And then from then on, like I just fell in love with her more and more every day.
Mhm.
Um, Now the other aspect of postpartum, of the physical aspect, I think I'm still kind of dealing with that a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and I understand some days you're like, oh, I just want to give my body grace. I created life. But for me, I think the worst part was thinking, wow, you really wanted this, and now look how like unappreciative you are.
Mhm.
So it was really a mental struggle with myself going back and forth. And then again, I kind of had a conversation with myself, um, and was like, it's okay to be upset with, not looking how you used to look pre-pregnancy, like it's an okay. It doesn't make you a worse person. Um,
Mhm.
and it's okay that you had the struggles that you did and you still like don't feel 100%. That's fine. Um, and then actually doing something about it because while you're breastfeeding and postpartum, you have to eat a lot more food. So it's like you want to lose weight, but then you also want to feed your baby. So it's like this back and forth, this pull and shove. So until I decided to stop breastfeeding and started actually being able to focus on me again, obviously still like my daughter, and it's not like I was just like, okay, get away. But being able to put myself into the mix too, that's when mentally it made a shift for me as well.
Yeah.
Um, and just being able to work out again and
Yeah.
figuring out a routine and stuff that works for me. Because before it was just like, just eat what I could,
Survival.
it's tough. It's tough. Like you're taking care of you've never been a parent before. You get home from the hospital, you're like in labor with all this pain. And then from one minute to the next, you come back and your life just completely changes. It's huge what us women have to go through and dads as well, but they don't have to go through the pain.
Kind of pain in their births, but yeah.
Yeah.
That's so true. Oh, man, there's so many things to chat about. One, I think, um, thank you for being honest about that postpartum, because a lot of women don't connect with their babies right away and they think something's wrong with them. And then they have we're also not taught that, you have these baby blues, right? When you have the biggest hormonal drop you're ever going to experience in your life. It's literally like going from like normal to like menopausal, in, like 24 hours. Oh my God. I don't know if you sweat your ass off, but I think you chill. Did you chill? I don't, maybe that was my sister. Oh my God, but I was like drenched in sweat. It was disgusting.
Every single night. Yes.
Somebody who was like chronically cold, that was very weird. But like, you have, I didn't experience that, as far as, I did connect with my child right away. I did, I didn't have any blues or anything. Now I had to mourn also more of a traumatic birth and the birth I did not want necessarily. I wanted the healthy child, whatever. But that was a whole other thing I had to process specifically. Um, but yeah, this postpartum period is such a sensitive time, of connecting, and so many women, especially women we deal with, who want postpartum bodies, they want to get their health back, they want to get their body back. I get that, but it's like, gosh, people rush it so much. And it's like it's this delicate balance of honoring your body, especially if you're breastfeeding. This is a rough one too, because we both had our own issues with breastfeeding. Like my baby latched right away. I had no problems with breastfeeding, thank goodness. Which also like is a whole nother thing. If like you keep having babies with tongue ties too, that's usually a mineral deficiency pre-pregnancy you should probably work on. But anyways, it's like, my baby did latch really, really easily, but had a lot of sensitivities that I was working through, and that was rough. Because you already know I like don't eat all of the foods. Like there's so many things and then I had to keep cutting out, cutting out, cutting out. Oh my God, it's so stressful. And I think you had like a latch issue too. So you're dealing with not only trying to eat enough, trying to figure out, is my baby gassy, because we thought our baby was colic. Like, oh my God. They'd be like, if it's colic, if the baby cries for like more than 3 hours a day. I was like, that would be a freaking vacation. Are you kidding? Like, I was like, oh my God, 3 hours a night, like for stretches, like, so you're dealing with sleeplessness, you're dealing with hormone shifts, you're dealing with, for me, I had a C-section, recovery. And I was like, and just trying to honor your body where it's at. And also just remember to eat. I had snacks and water like everywhere, just like in my house, like strewn, and trying to honor your body. And that takes a while. You truly are living off of adrenaline the first few months. And I think actually that was interesting when I really understood that, because my husband and I felt worse at like 5, 6 months than we did for the first few months. And our baby was sleeping a little bit more at this time. Not a lot, because my goodness, love my kid, but sleep was not. He didn't sleep through the night till like 14 months, but a horrible sleeper. But anyways, it was like you're living off of adrenaline, pure adrenaline. So it's like I remember feeling like, oh my God, I need my 8 to 9 hours of solid sleep. How the hell am I gonna do this? And Lana was up every hour and a half to 2 hours for months on end. It's like, and you just do it. And I felt tired, but like good. And then that like 5 or 6 month, and it's like not only are you experiencing hormone shifts during that time, but like your adrenaline starts wearing out a little. It's like, why do I feel worse, but I'm sleeping more? I don't know if you had that too, because you also had that shift of not breastfeeding anymore. I know I breastfed till a year, then I cut it off, and then for you it was I think around 6 months. But you have that hormonal shift too, so you're dealing with all of those things at one time that you don't really realize the impact that breastfeeding hormones have on your body. I remember being in a mentorship and talking to because I had actually hired a therapist and a mindset coach during this time because I was also building a company. I was going through, shifts and changes. And I remember just being like, I feel broken, and I was like, something's not right. And I was like, I know it's the hormones, but like, there's only so much balancing you can do when you're breastfeeding and up every 2 hours. And it was like, I remember making that shift to stop breastfeeding specifically just to I didn't care about my body. I wanted my mind back. I wanted everything to feel like a little more quotation normal for me. And that was a big one because I didn't have any, luckily, depression or, probably a little anxiety. But it was like, I just wanted to feel a little bit more like alive again in my body. Like you just are naturally a little suppressed. Like that does happen. It has to happen to give your body, the body what it needs. But it's just such an interesting thing to go through, and people don't talk about it enough, especially in the space where we're coaches, we're being people for everybody else. We don't want to appear like and it's like we're fighting our own things too. That's where support comes in, whether it's therapists. I don't really love like, mindset coaching. For me, community was a big one, leaning on family. I had joined specifically a mastermind to kind of be around other people in a different space too, and just finding that team to support you from different levels, because that really matters more than I think people realize. But it's tough.
100%. Yeah, for sure. Um, Thankfully for me, I don't want to say it, but let me like knock on wood first. So do I have any wood? Amelia is a great sleeper. Um, I don't know what it is, but that girl, we've been blessed with the sleeping. So yeah, I don't even like to say it too
Yeah.
much. Um, the breastfeeding for me, I I jumped the gun too quickly into wanting to get back into my pre-pregnancy bod. Um,
Um,
and I started cutting calories too fast
yeah.
and I wasn't producing enough. And then when I realized what I was doing, it was already too late.
Yeah.
Um, so I kind of like just drained myself out of everything that I could possibly give her. And at first, again, going back into breastfeeding, it's the best thing in the world. You have to have like your kid with breastfeeding. Once again, I'm in this like world of functional health and breastfeeding and blah blah blah. And the one of the doctors that worked at our pediatrician, she kind of scared us when we went there for her first doctor's visit, and she's like, "You need to give her formula right now," and she wanted to give me like some Similac.
I
Uh,
remember.
and thankfully, my friend, who's she's not into she's a little bit into wellness. For my baby shower, he had actually given me some formula from Germany. And thankfully I had some. And I remember thinking when I got home and I can actually think, I was like, hold on a second. We're not going to give her Similac. Like that is horrible. Yes, I want my baby to eat, but I want her to have like good stuff. So let's give her this formula. I feel much better about. And it was good. Like I remember I was a little bit scared the first time. And then I kind of got into a rhythm where I would mix the two since I wasn't producing enough, or I would give her whenever I was able to pump more, I would give her some breast milk, and then the next feeding would be formula. Um, I did realize that giving her formula at night, I kind of cheated, I think. She slept way more.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that was kind of the problem. So all in all, especially being again in the functional world, I am actually pretty satisfied with the way that my breastfeeding journey went,
Yeah.
at the beginning, I was a little bit like, no, it needs to be only breast milk. And I remember I tried looking for like a breast milk bank around here.
Wow.
But then people just started putting things in my head, like how about if someone's in cocaine, like having cocaine, or God knows like what's going on with them. And I was just like, maybe that's not the route to go. Unfortunately, all my friends, like they already had toddlers, so they weren't breastfeeding. So I couldn't like I had one friend that she produced way too much milk, but her baby was a toddler already. So I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna keep on with what I have. And I was even at the 6 mark where I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this until 6 months. I just kind of wanted to be like, if she were to get sick, I wanted to have that for medicinal purposes. So I was even able to freeze some. So I have a little bit, not very much, but whenever she just had her very first cold and I was able to give her some and, it worked wonders, just like what I wanted it to do. It did its job. But yeah, that I feel like that's another thing that is so frowned upon is, if you give formula and they
Oh,
kind of,
yeah.
I feel like society judges and even some other moms, which I think is really not cool.
Oh, oh, for sure.
If you're not breastfeeding, you like don't care about your kid and you didn't
Oh,
try hard enough. You know, it we're just all here trying to survive and
doing our damn best.
exactly, exactly. And whatever that might look like.
Oh, it's so true. I mean, the thing is though, if you don't breastfeed long enough, you get judged. If you breastfeed too long, you get judged. If you don't do it at the right intervals, if you spit, and it's like, just do what is best, not only for the child, but for you. I mean, I know I've had conversation with clients, I'm sure you have too. It's like it might be best to pull off breastfeeding, like for your mental health or physical health, because sometimes people really have some issues we can't address even when they're breastfeeding, right? But it's like, and that's okay too. And it's okay to mourn the loss of what you thought would be your breastfeeding journey, and what it is. And formula is not the devil. I remember you coming home and we having this conversation and me giving you recommendations for, formulas and things like that, because it's like, do what is best. And there are better options out there too, right? Like I think so often we think, Similac, a big one, oh, this is what they give you in the hospital. This is it. It's like, no, there are a lot better options out there too. So you feel a little bit better, at least, going that route. Um, but it's also, it's a hard decision to make. It's interesting too, being transparently a coach, right? Where it's like, the right things to do, you're still, and it's hard to do it because we just want to feel different. I know, again, we have very opposite experiences, I think, on every, like, I dropped my pre-pregnancy weight in like 2 months without trying, doing
That's
nothing. I dropped 35 pounds. Like, now I did not look the same. That's a very important thing to understand. Like weight loss is not the same. I'd lost a lot of muscle. I was definitely flabby in certain areas. My stomach took a long time to go away. Like I was still working on it, a little, but it's um that's an interesting thing too, is people really keep it on. So other people just and they're doing the same thing. And this our bodies just react a lot different. But I know something for me, and I want to emphasize this because you mentioned like getting back to working out, things like that. For me, I didn't really work out. I moved a little bit. And I tried to work out like 2, 3 times a week for like 15, 20 minutes, but like it wasn't really consistent because I was so sleep deprived. My baby was, I mean, it would take 2, 3 hours to get him down for a 2, 3 hour nap. I mean, it was really, really bad. And his sleep was truly horrific. We thought it was colic, and then he didn't sleep. And it was so stressful and taxing. And I was running a company full time at this, you know what I mean? I had 5 team members, I think, at the time. Like everybody relied on me too. It was like, and I was breastfeeding every 45 minutes to an hour. My husband was back at work. It was like, I, at this time too, I can't remember it. Like I had hired a nanny at like 4 months, but then that nanny ended up stopping. It was a whole thing, oh my
I
God.
remember all the nanny issues. Yeah.
Girl, the nanny issues. Beautiful few months while we had her, and then, it kind of, she ended up having to, moving, whatever. It was a whole thing. But why I say this is because one, I transparently didn't really talk about it on social media because I had a vision maintained. I didn't want people to think, oh, she's I wasn't also coaching all the clients at the time, right? I have coaches, and, that was really helpful. But But why I mention this is because my body was so depleted, so stressed, that working out for me was a stressor. And I didn't feel good doing it. And that actually helped me a lot with feeling better about not working out so much just saying I'm honoring my body. I know that actually this is making me feel worse at this current moment because my body is really, really depleted. And I needed to give it time to heal. And so that was a hard one too, because when I started to feel better and started to work out, I wasn't feeling better after my workouts. I was feeling worse. And I was like, that's a big sign for me, right? And I could push through it and just be like, oh, you're lazy, you're tired. But the reality was like when your cortisol is really low, people always think of it as high, right? Sometimes pulling back was important. So I prioritized more like walking. I did some abdominal work, not as much as I should have. Definitely like, that was one thing. If I could go back, I knew what I wanted to do, but I was worried if I laid on the floor, I'd fall asleep. And it actually happened. Like low key, I never talked. I fell asleep in my gym multiple times. I'm not kidding. I would go down there. This is what I tell clients too, is go try to work out for 5 minutes, warm up for 5, 10 minutes, and call it if you don't feel good. I can't tell you how many times I went down there, I warmed up, and I was like, no, no, I'm not doing this. My body is saying and screaming at me no, and that's okay. I'm honoring that. I did that. That was my, stuff with myself. Um, but there were certain times where I had no energy. And I was like, I can only do stuff on the floor. So I would do like clamshells, bridges. Um, I didn't have enough energy for planks, but I would just do some solo and I would fall asleep sometimes. Straight up on the floor in the gym on my dirty ass mat. And I'm not afraid to say that. But, I share this because this is the raw realities we see on social media. These women freaking killing it, and just like they have ripped abs already. They get straight back into like shape and like love that for them. That wasn't my reality. That wasn't the way I felt postpartum. And I had other things I did for me prioritize my company, my health of my baby, myself, my team. That was priority over sometimes working out, which, whoa, I know is a weird one because people think that's opposite. I did move, right? I got up and I did my walks. I prioritized what I could, but like that was it. And then, once I started feeling better, I was able to incorporate it more. And then once I got nanny thing figured out and had time a little more to myself, I was able to work out a little more. And that's been a really beautiful journey, but one that I met without guilt. And that was a big thing is I made these decisions that, right now my priority is this. So that made me feel better. I'm going to try to work out. If I want to call it, I want to call it. If I want to nap on the freaking floor, I'm going to nap on the floor. I can tell you, I did way more meditations, way more nervous system work than I did working out because that's what my body truly needed. Now, I also am going to say I had the quotation luxury of I did drop weight very quickly, right? I dropped 30, I was down. And so I don't want to also ignore that because a lot of women, I understand if you still have 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever it is, might be a little, might be a little different. But for me, it was just like, uh, it was a lot of nervous system work and a lot of just restorative work. And that is what I needed at that time. And I just like, I feel like we don't talk about this enough. It's like, do it tired. That's a big one, which is true. Sometimes you
Yeah.
do. As a mom, pretty much that's what you do.
Oh,
You do it
I
tired.
know.
But it's like it is also okay to pull back and realize that this is a phase of my life. And this phase, this is what I'm choosing to honor while still honoring my body and working out when I can, right? It wasn't like I just gave it up, but it was like two two 20-minute workouts if I'm walking, one maybe horizontal. So,
And
but
I think the best thing that you could have done, because seeing you like working on your nervous system, you're so different than you were a year ago. And um, I think that we need to let women know like that's okay too. If you're pushing, as moms, we're already pushing so much.
oh,
And it's hard to listen to your body because you do want, like, I haven't reached my goal yet. But I'm okay with that. I'm going slow. I'm not gonna beat myself up about it. But I truly do enjoy working out. And for me, I cannot be like stuck at home all day. I have to go out.
yeah.
And that, like, I'm not doing anything crazy at the gym or anything like that, like towards the beginning. Just because I knew, cortisol, nervous system, hormones, everything. My body could not take that at that time. But I truly admire you for just knowing, hey, I need to pull back and having that time to work on your nervous system, which is probably why you dropped weight so fast because your body was like, go ahead. I'm cool.
I really, so as someone who also has an autoimmune disease, has a history of gut issues, a history of hormone issues, history, I'm very sensitive, right? And this is the most stressful time typically in a woman's life, and it's like we are not honoring our bodies in that. You know what I mean? We are taught to just shrink back to what we look like before, no matter what. Really, I mean, we override so much, and we already don't really have a sound mind postpartum. There's already so much change and shifts and sleeplessness, but it's like we're not taught to honor that or even what nervous system is. And, but I also know like when my baby was going through a very hard time, I mean, especially with sleep, I was like, I need to regulate myself first because about that third hour of rocking that kid, I'm like, oh my God. I had to learn to regulate myself because my kid also picks up on that too. And that was a big thing. But also when your body is sensitive to these things, I see women drive their body to the ground and develop hypothyroidism is a huge one postpartum for many, many reasons. But one of them is, stress, adrenals, mineral depletion, but that's a huge one. And it's like maybe you can drop the weight and maybe you do, and then, like, you don't realize why 6 months later, suddenly you're gaining weight out of nowhere. Suddenly you can't sleep. You have hives, you have bloating, all these, your body rebounds. And it's not that we have all these things wrong. It's just our body stress response, right? You can only handle so much for so long. And because you're running on adrenaline, a lot of times we feel like super parents. And I felt like that too, but it's like we can do it all. Doesn't always mean we should,
Yep.
right? And that's a big one. And so I really can't urge people enough. And I get it. Like I had my kid full time. I was running a company full time. Babe didn't sleep. And I still found the time. I found the time to do nervous system work, to meditate, to whatever it looked like, to walk, to, whatever. Um, it was harder and there were certain things I'd prioritize certain times, but it's like, you can do it all. And sometimes it just we shouldn't. But it's okay to pull back a little bit. But
No,
yeah, but it's a hard one. It's a hard one
it
because we
is.
feel lazy,
It
right?
is. It's
Like
not the sexy, like the working out and all the nervous system work. I feel like is the odd man out. Nobody wants to do it because it ain't the sexy one. Just like protein isn't the sexy macro.
but at least it's like you feel like, oh, when I have a protein shake, I feel better, my blood sugar's stable. Maybe I'm gonna have, a healthier body, or it'll help with my abs or my ass. Oh my God, that breastfeeding ass, dude. Nobody talks about breastfeeding ass.
I know,
I was
I
just
know,
so
I
mad.
know.
I was like, give me all the protein. I really wanted to do squats. And I was like, my body's like, no. And I'm like, but it's like, it's not sexy and it's not the things we share on social media because it doesn't get all the likes, it doesn't get the shares, and we don't feel like we get this immediate satisfaction, especially when we're on this functional freeze, when we're in this overdrive. It takes so long to rewire the brain. So when we're doing this work, it doesn't feel like we're going anywhere sometimes because we're constantly inundated with more stress. But it's like, man, I know you're kind of going through this journey too of just like learning even deeper on this nervous system work, but it's like, man, how I responded to that is so different than I would have responded a little bit ago. My kid just did something and I didn't suddenly freak out or want to yell at him, or my husband just put the dishwasher in wrong and I didn't blow up at him. It's like all of these things are for me as the dog licking. The dog licking was like, I could handle my kid crying, but then like the dog would obsessively lick at like 2 minutes. I was like, ah! And it's like,
Besitos in my, I love besitos from my dogs.
that was the funniest one where I was like, why? Why? But it's like you pause and realize like that's my nervous system responding, and I'm not going to die. Like we think everything is a threat. We don't realize that that's not normal, right? And so we have to just like calm it down and realize like our body's safe. We're not going to die, but it's like, but that's work. I think it's the hardest work sometimes that you have to do. And it's not that it's hard as in like, you don't have to do an hour meditation, but it's like, can we do 5 minutes of some frequency? Can you go prioritize taking a 10-minute bath and telling your husband like, hey, can I, or partner, whoever it is, do this? It's like we feel like we have to like be the person for everybody for everything, and then you burn out. And then what happens when your kid sees you snapping all of the time? That's not
Mhm.
fair, right? What happens when you don't have energy to go and play with that kid now because you're so burnt out, you know? And what happens when you start dissociating and just scrolling and you can't even like be present, right? It's like we think this is mom brain, mom, get mom. No, it's like these things aren't, there are ways to combat this, but you have to put in the work, and that work is maybe not the thing that you think it is as far as like dieting and exercise. Important.
Right.
But that's the missing piece, and I just really think that is just really often overlooked. So, and do it before you get pregnant too, because it's honestly it's harder postpartum. Like I started the work pre-pregnancy, but I really dived in postpartum, and it was hard.
And it's also not just about yoga, because
No.
like a lot of people, and actually, depending on the type of yoga you do, you can actually get more stressed out.
For sure.
Uh,
Yeah.
or like meditating. There are other things that you can do as well. And you said briefly, and I wanted to say something about that. A lot of times as moms, we don't want to ask for help.
No.
Um, and I know that with some of our clients, I've kind of had to tell them, hey, it's okay to tell your husband or whoever it is, take care of the baby so you can have an hour to work out. Just you're not selfish because you're doing
Or even
something
20
for
minutes,
yourself.
15
Yeah.
minutes. Doesn't even have to be an hour.
Exactly. Like you're not selfish because you're asking for that, and you're not a bad mom, and you're not obviously, we want
Right.
to just sit there and snuggle with them because they're so cute. That happened to me yesterday. I was so tired and I was like, I just want to stay with her. But I knew that I was going to be doing a disservice to myself and to her if I just stayed. So I was like, I got to do this. Like, even if it's not the greatest workout and half-ass it, it's fine, but I want to do this for her. It's not even so much about me.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, I think as moms, we just got to realize that's also part of the journey.
100%. Asking for help, for assistance, for boundaries is a big one. And
The best with them.
you can be super mom and still do these things. And it's one of the better things that you can do. It doesn't mean yeah, that you're doing anything wrong or neglecting them. Like one of the best things I've heard is your kids don't care about how much time you spend, it's how much presence.
Mhm.
And that one hit me like a nail
Yeah.
in the chest because like or sword in the chest probably because I remember going through it was I think I heard a few months postpartum where I was really having a hard time with balancing everything. It was when my nannies had left. I was running the company, going through a lot of changes, firing people, um, you know, um, not fun things I had to do and, going through shifts and changes and um just feeling like even when I was with my kid, I wasn't with my kid. And I feel bad saying this because I was like, oh my God, my Slack channel, my clients, what is the fire I need to burn out over here? As CEOs, you're always dealing with, something, and it's you can have the beautiful side of things, but we don't talk about the shit too. But I was like, I was just so overwhelmed, right? And I was just constantly, I felt like I was on my phone, which was not fair to my kid, and it was like, I just remember being like, it's not about the time, it's about the presence. And I'm not being present. This stuff can wait. And I remember just setting harder boundaries with myself. And when I did that, it kind of sucked at first. And then I felt a huge sigh of relief. It's like nobody's gonna die. Because my nerves, somebody's gonna die, right? And it wasn't like gonna actually die. It was just like, oh, this team member needs this response right away. This client needs a response, right? And guess what? They don't. They don't. You know what I mean? Like people can wait. But these moments you're never gonna get back. And it was like that flipped a switch for me, for sure. And just being like, things can wait, responses can wait, texts can wait, calls. I took a lot, I silenced a lot of calls from people. Like I exited a lot of calls. I'm not as scared to sit because I was like, my energy, I can't do that right now. I love my family and I know but you know what? This is my moment to be present with my kid and not to give to other people or to even talk about that. I just want to be present. You know what I mean? So it's like that really hit home, especially for very career-driven women, people who own their own companies and raise kids. It's a delicate balance,
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of people are like, I built this company while my kid napped. Well, guess what? My kid didn't fucking nap. Okay. So like it would take me an hour.
Built it.
for 1 hour nap, and then he'd be up fine, eating. And I spent 3.5 hours feeding this kid between breastfeeding and food. You know what I mean?
Oh my God.
So, but
You know who put me in my place with that of being on my phone? Mila. I and she's 9 months, and I would be like sitting with her playing, and I just like look at my phone or answer a client call or even go on Instagram. And she'd like grab my phone from me and she'd like just throw it. And I'm like, oh my God, this little girl, like at 9 months, she's already telling me that she wants my full attention. And that would like wake me up and be like, what am I doing? Let me spend this time with my daughter. So yeah, kids have a weird way of teaching you things. Like, I don't know. They're great.
for sure, yeah, the kids throwing the phone, or just, I can't remember exactly what was said, but it was like this guy was at a park, or this girl was at a park, whatever, and she was like, um, I counted how many times my kid looked at me while I was at the park, and like it was like 5 minutes or 10 minutes, I can't remember. She was like, it was like over 200 times that kid looked at me, and it was like something, maybe it was a 20-minute period or whatever. And she goes, and then I looked around at all these other moms and all these people on their phones, and how even for 5 minutes, if we just scroll, it's really easy to, and you think your kid's playing and they're looking at you and dissociating, and it's like they start picking up all of this energy that you aren't giving them, or that attention, and they need that, right? And it was like, how often do we just, oh, I'm just going to check this one thing on Instagram, and it's like 10 minutes, we didn't realize. So it's like, whoops. And that kid has been, oh, we think they're looking at you. They're wondering why you're not paying attention. And then they self-soothe themselves, by doing these things. And that's a beautiful thing too. But it's like, I remember that study just being like, oh man, that really hit home too. It's just like a simple scroll. Like, I really try not to be on my phone as much, for sure. Or if I do, I tell, like, especially, I have a very supportive husband that has definitely helped a lot in this journey. But being like, hey, can you take the kid for 20 minutes? Because I need to go finish this Instagram thing or whatever. So that way that kid didn't see me on my phone. And first 10 minutes when he comes home, and usually the last hour, like, for sure, no phone. Like, I don't want that kid seeing me on my phone at all. I want them to be my full attention. And it's not always perfect. Sometimes in the middle, I'm answering a message or whatever, but that was something that stuck with me a little bit. It's just like how much they really look to you and regulate through you, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. I actually learned the other day, I thought that kids or babies can self-regulate, and I actually learned that they can't, not until they're 6 years old. Because I felt like I would see her touching her ear and I was like, oh, she's self like soothing because like she's touching the vagus nerve. But no, apparently they're not able to until they're 6. So that's why it's so important that we are their codependency, like we are able to regulate so that they can regulate through us. So yeah, it's super important. It's, as moms, we have a lot of roles. Let me just say. And like you said, it's not about perfection, because at the end of the day, like our kid's not going to be like, oh my gosh, you were the perfect mom in the whole wide world, like you did everything. No, it's about trying and giving them your best and having the knowledge, and trying to do better. Like, I know one thing that my mom hates is when I say, oh, you used to do this with me, but I want to do it different because I feel like maybe
Yeah.
it could have been a little. She gets so mad. But I'm like, there's nothing wrong with how you did it. Like, I know a little bit more now. I'm in a different field than you were, so I know things. And hey, I'm sure that I am still gonna mess up some way. And when Mila has her kids, she's gonna want to do things differently. So we're all here just trying and doing the best, and with the information and the knowledge that we have. But yeah, it's tough. The other day, actually yesterday, I saw this post, and let me tell you, it has hit home. It was like everything about being a mom, exactly how you feel. Like you can't live without them, but then you can't wait for them to fall asleep because
Yeah.
you want like that time by yourself, but then they fall asleep and you're like, I miss them so much. Or,
Oh,
you miss your past life, but you can't remember your life without them. But, it's just so many like weird roller coaster emotions that come with being a mom. That it's just, I think you wouldn't know until you become one because everyone tried to explain it to me. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. Until I'm in it, I get it.
Literally cannot. You cannot, one, understand the absolute love that you have for this kid. I know people are like, well, all these people are like in love with their kid. Okay. Freaking love my kid. I'm obsessed with him. I think he's the best. Um, really wish he would have slept a little better when at those early years, but he's sleeping now. Okay. But it's like you can't understand that. You can't also understand. I mean, you and I have coached women. I've coached women and moms for 15 years. And I remember becoming a mom, being very excited to relate on a deeper level, to my clients, because you can't understand until you're in the thick of it, and that's okay. And I'm really glad too that you mentioned moms and mom guilt, and that's a big one I see a lot too. It's like we're doing the best with the tools that we know and what we're given. And it's like if you change and shift things, and how many women are like, "Oh my God, I wish I would have known this. I wish I," and then you feel guilty. It's like, no, 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 you did the best you could with the information you had. And that was enough. And that was what the kid needed. That is fine. You know what I mean? And I think it's important empowering people now with more information, to take those, control of their health a little bit. And but yeah, that mom guilt's a big one. It's like, oh, I ruined you, or oh, I did. It's like, no, no, no. We just first of all, we did things different in the 80s/90s, rather we do it now, right? We have a lot more information, for better, for worse. But it's like it's just doing the best that you can with what you are able to do, and that's enough. And that's enough.
Mhm.
So I feel like we gotta wrap this up. This could be like another hour-long conversation, but this is
I know.
probably my longest podcast, which is amazing. I mean, we could chat forever, but I do hope that if you're listening, if you've made it through this whole episode, that I know this is something that both you and I we talked about, getting really raw, getting really open, getting really transparent, because you see a lot of the highlight on social media, and that's beautiful, and it ain't the full story. So, motherhood is beautiful, and it's messy, and it's awesome, and it's hard all at the same time. So, I'm sure Monica feels the same, but if you guys have any questions, comments, really, just, if anything hit home for you, would love to know. Shoot Monica a message on Instagram, probably Monica Paez, right?
Yeah, at Monica Pies with a K. My dad
With a
got it from
K.
a coffee machine at the hospital I was born at. Everyone thinks I'm Russian because of it. And I'm like, no, it's from a coffee machine.
That's hysterical. Monica with a K, or me, and we'd love to know your thoughts, or leave an honest review. Love that too. I think women need to hear this conversation. So, anyways, thank you, Monica, as always, for coming on and speaking, and we'll catch you guys on the next show. Thanks for listening.
Bye.